The gathering storm. The stars glittered coldly in the vastness of space, their light casting a pale glow on the decimated Kree fleet. What was once a formidable armada had been reduced to scattered wreckage and drifting hulks. Captain Zarok, the battle-hardened leader of the Kree forces, gripped his command console with white-knuckled intensity. The damage reports were relentless, shields failing, weapons offline, hull breaches on every deck. They were outmatched, outgunned, and on the brink of total annihilation at the hands of the Zonian Empire. Zarok's mind raced as he tried to find a way out of the impossible situation. Retreat seemed the only option, a desperate attempt to save what little remained of his fleet. But just as he opened his mouth to give the order, a deep, unfamiliar voice crackled over the comms. "This is Captain Jason Rees of the United Earth ship Defiant. We hear you, Kree. Help is on the way." Zarok's heart skipped a beat. He had heard of the humans, a young, ambitious species that had recently made their presence known in the galaxy. But he had never imagined they would intervene in a battle that didn't concern them. And yet, here they were. The Defiant, a massive human dreadnought, dropped out of warp with guns blazing. The ship's angular hull bristled with advanced weaponry, and within moments it was tearing through the Zonian fleet with a ferocity that left Zarok in awe. The tide of battle began to shift as the Defiant's cannons ripped through Zonian shields, shattering their once impenetrable defenses. On the Zonian flagship, the Fist of Conquest, Emperor Zarthan watched the unfolding chaos with growing unease. The Zonians had been poised for victory, their superior technology and overwhelming numbers all but guaranteeing the destruction of the Kree. But the arrival of the human ship had changed everything. Zarthan's sneer faded as he realized the gravity of his miscalculation. "Your Excellency," the sensor officer piped up, her voice trembling. "A new contact has arrived on the battlefield. It's a human dreadnought, sir. It's enormous." Zarthan's eyes narrowed as he focused on the view screen. The Defiant was a fearsome sight, dwarfing even his largest battleships. He had never encountered such a vessel, and its sheer firepower was decimating his fleet. For the first time, the Emperor of the Zonian Empire felt a chill of fear creep down his spine. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Jason Rees stood tall, his gaze locked on the enemy fleet. The Zonians had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. But the battle was far from over. The Defiant might have evened the odds, but the Zonians still had numbers on their side. "Helm, bring us about. Target the enemy flagship," Jason ordered, his voice steady and commanding. "Let's show them what happens when they mess with Earth." As the Defiant maneuvered into position, its guns trained on the Fist of Conquest, Jason felt a surge of determination. The fate of the Kree, and perhaps the entire sector, hung in the balance. But he knew one thing for sure: as long as humans stood against tyranny, hope would never be lost. The Empire strikes back. Emperor Zarthan stormed across the bridge of the Fist of Conquest, his scaly feet digging into the metal floor with each angry step. The battle had been going perfectly until these damned humans appeared out of nowhere. Now, his fleet was in disarray, his ships being torn apart by a single human dreadnought. It was unthinkable. "Bring us about," Zarthan barked at his helmsman. "Set a course straight for that human ship. I want all forward lances firing on them immediately." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances but obeyed without question. The Fist of Conquest lumbered around, its massive thrusters flaring as it charged toward the Defiant. Zarthan's plan was simple. He would smash the human ship with overwhelming firepower and turn the tide of battle back in his favor. But Captain Jason Rees was ready. He had anticipated the Emperor's move and prepared the Defiant for a full frontal assault. As the Zonian flagship closed in, Jason ordered his neutron cannons to be prepped for a full volley. "Divert all power to the forward shields and weapons," Jason commanded, his voice cold and focused. "When that ship gets in range, I want it obliterated." The tension on the Defiant's bridge was palpable. The Zonian flagship was a behemoth, bristling with weapons and armored to the teeth. But Jason knew that the Defiant was more than a match for it. The neutron cannons, Earth's most advanced weaponry, could cut through even the toughest shields with ease. "Captain, the Zonian flagship is almost in range," the sensor officer reported. "Hold steady," Jason replied, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The Fist of Conquest loomed larger and larger, its weapons blazing as it unleashed a barrage of energy bolts at the Defiant. The human ship's shields flared, but they held strong, absorbing the impact without flinching. "Now, fire," Jason shouted. The Defiant's neutron cannons rolled to life, unleashing a brilliant beam of energy that streaked across space and struck the Zonian flagship head-on. The Fist of Conquest's shields flared and sputtered, unable to withstand the onslaught. The beam punched through the hull, vaporizing everything in its path. For a moment, the Zonian ship hung motionless in space, split cleanly in two. Then, with a series of massive explosions, it disintegrated into a cloud of debris. The bridge of the Defiant erupted in cheers, but Jason raised his hand, silencing the celebration. "This isn't over yet," he reminded his crew. "The rest of the Zonian fleet is still out there, and they're not going to go down without a fight." Jason opened a comm channel to the Kree ships. "All Kree vessels, form up on the Defiant. We'll protect you while we take down the remaining Zonian ships." Captain Zarok, watching from his battered cruiser, couldn't believe what he was seeing. The human ship had just destroyed the Zonian flagship in a single shot. It was a feat that no Kree vessel could have accomplished. And now the humans were offering their protection. Zarok felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "All Kree ships, you heard the man," Zarok ordered. "Form up on the Defiant. We'll follow their lead." The Kree ships, damaged and demoralized, rallied around the Defiant. Together, they formed a defensive sphere, their remaining firepower concentrated in a tight formation. The Zonian fleet, reeling from the loss of their flagship, regrouped for a final assault. Jason knew the next few minutes would be critical. The Zonians still had the advantage in numbers, but the Defiant had the advantage in firepower. It would be a brutal, drawn-out battle, but Jason was confident that humanity's determination and resilience would carry them through. "All right, people," Jason said, his voice steady and calm. "Let's show these lizards what humans are made of. Fire at will." The Defiant's guns rolled once more, and the battle for the Kree homeworld raged on. The turning tide. The battlefield was a maelstrom of destruction. Ships from both sides were engulfed in flames, their hulls torn apart by relentless firepower. But amidst the chaos, the Defiant stood as a beacon of hope, its guns blazing with unyielding fury. The human dreadnought was a force to be reckoned with, and the Zonian fleet was learning that the hard way. Captain Jason Reeves remained composed, his mind racing as he calculated their next move. The Zonian ships were still pressing their attack, but they were no longer the unstoppable force they had been at the start of the battle. The loss of their flagship had shaken their morale, and the coordinated fire from the Defiant and the Kree ships was taking its toll. "Captain, we're detecting multiple Zonian ships breaking off from the main formation," the sensor officer reported. "It looks like they're retreating." Jason allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Let's keep the pressure on them. Helm, bring us around to target the rear of their formation. We'll pick them off as they try to escape." The Defiant's thrusters flared as it spun around, its guns locking onto the retreating Zonian ships. One by one, the enemy vessels were torn apart, their shields unable to withstand the concentrated firepower. The once mighty Zonian fleet was crumbling, and the Kree ships, inspired by the Defiant's example, fought with renewed vigor. On the bridge of the Kree cruiser, Captain Zarok watched in awe as the tide of battle turned in their favor. The humans had not only saved them from certain destruction, but were now leading them to victory. Zarok had never seen anything like it. The Defiant moved through the battlefield with the precision of a scalpel, cutting down the Zonian ships with ruthless efficiency. "Captain Reeves, this is Zarok," he said over the comms. "I don't know how to thank you. Without your help, we would have been lost. Jason's voice came back, calm and steady. There's no need for thanks, Captain. We're in this together. We stand against tyranny, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect our allies. Zarok felt a swell of gratitude. The humans were unlike any species he had ever encountered. They were fierce, determined, and loyal to their allies. It was no wonder they had risen so quickly in the galactic community. And now, as they fought side by side, Zarok knew that the bond between their peoples would be forged in the fires of battle. As the last of the Zonian ships was destroyed, a cheer went up from the Kree fleet. The battle was over, and they had emerged victorious. But the cost had been high, and the wreckage of countless ships littered the battlefield. Jason ordered the Defiant to begin search and rescue operations, determined to save as many lives as possible. Captain Reeves, what happens now? Zarok asked as the Defiant's shuttles began picking up survivors. Jason took a deep breath, surveying the battlefield. Now, we rebuild. The Zonians won't take this defeat lightly. They'll be back, and we need to be ready. But for now, we've won a great victory. The Kree are safe, and the Zonian Empire has been dealt a serious blow. Zarok nodded, his heart filled with both relief and determination. The road ahead would be difficult, but with the humans by their side, he was confident they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The battle had shown him that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, an ally that would stand firm in the face of adversity. As the Defiant continued its rescue operations, Jason allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The battle had been fierce, and the losses were significant. But humanity had proven its mettle once again. They had stood against tyranny and emerged victorious. And as long as they continued to fight for what was right, Jason knew that the future was bright. Echoes of defiance. The remnants of the Zonian fleet had retreated into the dark expanse of space, leaving behind a silent graveyard of twisted metal and debris. The once teeming battlefield was now a somber reminder of the fierce conflict that had taken place. The Kree and human ships drifted among the wreckage, their crews working tirelessly to rescue survivors and assess the damage. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Jason Reeves stood before the central console, surveying the scene. The crew was weary, their faces etched with the strain of battle, but there was also a quiet sense of pride in the air. They had stood their ground against a powerful enemy and emerged victorious. But Jason knew this was only the beginning. "Captain, we've completed the rescue operations," Lieutenant Saravance reported, her voice subdued. "We managed to save over 200 Kree and a few Zonian prisoners. Unfortunately, many others didn't make it." Jason nodded, a somber expression on his face. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Make sure the survivors are given medical attention and rest. We've all been through a lot." As Sarah relayed the orders, Jason turned his attention to the tactical display. The Kree fleet was gathering in formation, their ships battered but still operational. Captain Zarok's cruiser had taken heavy damage, but it remained at the forefront, a symbol of the Kree's resilience. Jason opened a secure channel to Zarok. The Kree captain appeared on the view screen, his scales dulled by exhaustion but his eyes sharp with resolve. "Captain Zarok," Jason began, "we've driven off the Zonians for now, but we both know they'll be back. The Empire won't let this defeat go unpunished. We need to prepare for their return." Zarok inclined his head, his voice grave. "You're right, Captain Reeves. The Zonians have long sought to dominate this region, and our resistance has only fueled their aggression. But thanks to you and your people, we've bought ourselves some time. We must use it wisely." Jason leaned forward, his expression intense. "We need to strengthen our defenses and forge alliances with other species who oppose the Zonian Empire. The only way we'll survive is if we stand together. Humanity is ready to help, but we can't do it alone." Zarok's gaze hardened. "The Kree will not surrender. We will fight with everything we have. If the Zonians return, they will find us ready." A sudden alert on the Defiant's console interrupted the conversation. The ship's AI, a sophisticated system named Nexus, chimed in with a calm, almost soothing tone. "Captain Rees, I'm detecting an incoming transmission from Zonian space. It's highly encrypted, but I believe it's intended for you." Jason exchanged a glance with his officers, curiosity and caution flickering in his eyes. "Patch it through, Nexus. Let's see what they have to say." The view screen flickered before displaying a shadowed figure clad in the ornate armor of a Zonian warlord. The figure's reptilian features were barely visible beneath the shadows, but the cold, calculating eyes that stared back at Jason were unmistakable. "Captain Jason Rees of the United Earth ship Defiant," the figure hissed, its voice dripping with disdain. "I am Commander Valen of the Zonian High Command. You have meddled in affairs that do not concern you. The Zonian Empire will not tolerate such insolence." Jason remained unflinching, his voice steady. "Your empire sought to crush the Kriya, to impose your will on a free people. We will not stand by while tyranny spreads. If you seek war with humanity, know that we will fight to the last breath." Commander Valen's eyes narrowed, his voice a venomous whisper. "You have made a grave mistake, human. The Zonian Empire is vast, its resources and forces unmatched. This victory of yours is a mere annoyance, a minor setback. When we return, it will be with the full might of the Empire, and your defiance will be crushed beneath our heel." Jason met the commander's gaze with unyielding resolve. "If you think you can break us, you're welcome to try. But I promise you this, Commander, every time you attack, we'll fight back harder. And every time you take a life, we'll make you pay for it 100-fold. We are not afraid of you." Valen sneered, his image flickering slightly as if the transmission itself was struggling to contain his rage. "You will be, Captain. The Zonian Empire does not forget, and it does not forgive. Prepare yourself, for the storm is coming." With that, the transmission abruptly cut off, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Jason let out a slow breath, the weight of the threat hanging in the air like a dark cloud. "Captain," Sarah said quietly, "what do we do now?" Jason straightened, his expression hardened by determination. "We prepare. We gather our allies, fortify our defenses, and ready our people. The Zonians may be strong, but they've underestimated us before. We've shown them what humanity is capable of, and we'll do it again." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his crew. "This fight isn't just about us or the Kriya. It's about standing up against oppression, about showing the galaxy that no matter how powerful the enemy, there are those who will resist. We're going to be ready for them, and when they come, we'll make sure they never forget the name of Earth." The crew nodded in silent agreement, their resolve mirroring that of their captain. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. As the Defiant set course for Allied space, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was yet to come. But he knew one thing for certain: humanity would face it head-on, with courage, strength, and the unbreakable spirit that had defined them for centuries. Allies and ambitions. The Defiant glided through the vastness of space, its engines humming softly as the crew worked to repair the damage from the recent battle. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was one of tense anticipation. They had won a crucial victory, but Jason Rees knew it was only the beginning. The Zonians would return, and when they did, they would come with overwhelming force. On the bridge, Jason stared out at the stars, his mind racing with plans. They needed allies, more than just the Kriya. The Zonian Empire was vast, and if they were to stand a chance, they needed to unite as many species as possible against the common threat. "Lieutenant Vance, what's our status on communications with potential allies?" Jason asked, turning to his trusted second-in-command. Sarah Vance, ever efficient, tapped a few keys on her console. "We've sent out signals to several nearby systems. The Yalaran Confederation, the Sokai Union, and the Rylov Consortium have all acknowledged our transmission. The Sokai have agreed to send a representative to discuss terms of alliance. We're still waiting to hear back from the others." Jason nodded, pleased with the progress. The Circae were a formidable species, known for their advanced technology and strategic prowess. Their support would be invaluable, but he knew they needed more than just one ally. Good. Prepare a course for Circae space. I want to make sure we secure their help as soon as possible, Jason ordered. As the Defiant altered its course, Nexus, the ship's AI, chimed in. Captain, I've also intercepted communications between Zonian fleets in the region. They appear to be regrouping near the Thanet cluster. It's possible they're planning a counterattack. Jason's brow furrowed. Keep monitoring their movements, Nexus. We need to stay one step ahead of them. The journey to Circae space was tense, the crew on high alert for any signs of a Zonian ambush. But they arrived without incident, entering the orbit of Circae Prime, the heart of the Circae Union. The planet was a glittering sphere of metallic cities and lush green landscapes, a testament to the Circae's blend of technological advancement and environmental harmony. The Defiant was granted permission to dock at one of the massive orbital stations that surrounded the planet. As they disembarked, Jason was struck by the sheer scale of Circae engineering. The station was a bustling hub of activity, with ships from countless species coming and going, all under the watchful eyes of Circae security. They were greeted by a delegation of Circae officials, led by an imposing figure clad in ornate armor. The Circae were a tall, lithe species with angular features and deep-set eyes that glowed faintly with an inner light. Their leader, who introduced herself as High Commander Liara, exuded an air of quiet authority. Captain Reeves, welcome to Circae Prime, Liara said, her voice melodic yet firm. We've heard much about your recent engagement with the Zonians. You've proven that humanity is a force to be reckoned with. Jason inclined his head in respect. Thank you, High Commander, but we know that one victory won't be enough. The Zonian Empire is preparing to strike back, and we can't defeat them alone. That's why we've come, to seek an alliance with the Circae Union. Liara's expression was thoughtful as she led them through the station's corridors, passing by windows that offered breathtaking views of the planet below. The Zonian Empire has long been a threat to the stability of this region. We've had our own skirmishes with them over the years, but they've never committed to full-scale war against us. Your intervention has changed the balance of power, and the Zonians will not take that lightly. Jason could sense the unspoken question in her words. We didn't come here to start a war, High Commander, but we're prepared to finish one if that's what it takes to stop the Zonians. Humanity has faced impossible odds before, and we've always found a way to survive. But we need your help. Together, we can stand against the Empire and protect our worlds. Liara paused, turning to face him. Her eyes searched his, as if trying to gauge the depth of his conviction. After a moment, she nodded. The Circae Union does not take alliances lightly, Captain, but your actions have shown that you are willing to fight for more than just your own survival. You've proven that humanity has a place among the stars. She gestured to one of her aides, who handed her a sleek data tablet. We will join your cause, Captain Reeves. But know that this alliance will require sacrifices from both our peoples. The Zonians are ruthless, and they will target any who stand against them. We must be prepared for a long and difficult struggle. Jason accepted the tablet, which detailed the terms of the alliance. As he reviewed it, he felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The Circae were powerful allies, but their support came with a heavy burden. They would need to share technology, coordinate military efforts, and potentially send human troops into Circae-led operations. It was a steep price, but one Jason was willing to pay. Agreed, Jason said, handing the tablet back to Liara. We'll stand together, no matter what comes. Liara smiled faintly, a rare expression for her kind. Then it's settled. We'll begin coordinating our forces immediately. The Zonians won't know what hit them. As they finalized the details of their alliance, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the eye of the storm. The Zonians were regrouping, and when they struck again, it would be with a fury unmatched by anything they had faced before. But now, With the Sukai at their side, there was hope. Returning to the Defiant, Jason addressed his crew. We've secured the Sukai as allies. This is a major step forward, but the road ahead is still long and dangerous. The Zonians will come for us with everything they have, but we'll be ready. We've faced down giants before, and we'll do it again. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the news. As the Defiant set course for the next potential ally, Jason allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The stakes had never been higher, but they were no longer fighting alone. And in the face of the looming storm, that made all the difference. The gathering storm. The Defiant cruised through the black void of space, its course set for the Ryloth Consortium, a powerful trade alliance with influence across numerous star systems. Jason Reeves knew this was another crucial step in their plan to unite the galaxy against the Zonian Empire. Every new ally brought them closer to standing on equal footing with their relentless enemy. On the bridge, Jason stood with Lieutenant Sarah Vance, both watching as the star systems flew by on the ship's main display. Nexus, Jason called out, "What do we know about the Ryloth Consortium? Any recent activity that might affect our negotiations?" Nexus's calm, synthetic voice responded immediately. The Ryloth Consortium is a coalition of merchant guilds and trade companies. They wield significant economic power, but their military capabilities are limited. Recent intelligence suggests internal strife within the consortium. Several factions are vying for control of the leadership. This could complicate our efforts. Jason frowned, considering the implications. We'll need to tread carefully. If they're divided, it could weaken their position against the Zonians. But if we can unify them under our cause, their resources could tip the scales in our favor. Agreed, Vance said, crossing her arms as she studied the display. But it won't be easy. The consortium is known for playing both sides of a conflict to maximize their profits. They might see an alliance with us as too risky. Jason nodded, knowing she was right. The Ryloth Consortium was driven by profit and stability, not by ideals. Convincing them to join a war against the Zonians would require more than just promises, it would require leverage. As the Defiant neared the Ryloth system, they were hailed by a sleek, silver starship bearing the consortium's emblem. The image of a stern-faced Rylothian male appeared on the main screen, his eyes cold and calculating. "Captain Reeves of the Defiant," the Rylothian said, his voice clipped. "I am Viceroy Thalro, representing the Ryloth Consortium. We've received your request for a meeting. You are clear to dock at our central station. Be advised, however, that the consortium remains neutral in your conflict with the Zonians." Jason smiled diplomatically. "Thank you, Viceroy Thalro. We appreciate the opportunity to discuss a potential partnership. We believe that together, we can ensure the safety and prosperity of all our worlds." Thalro's expression remained unreadable as he nodded and cut the transmission. Jason could feel the tension in the air as the Defiant docked at the Rylothian station, a massive structure gleaming with the wealth and sophistication of its builders. As Jason and his team disembarked, they were met by a group of Rylothian guards, their polished armor reflecting the station's ambient light. Viceroy Thalro awaited them at the end of a long, ornately decorated corridor, flanked by several other members of the consortium leadership. The Viceroy extended a hand in greeting, his demeanor as stiff as it was during their communication. "Captain Reeves, welcome to Ryloth Prime. We've arranged a formal audience with the Consortium Council. They will hear your proposal, but I must warn you, the Council is not easily swayed." Jason shook the Viceroy's hand firmly. "Understood, Viceroy. We're here to make our case and hope the Council will see the value in what we offer." Thalro nodded curtly and led them into the Council chamber, an expansive room dominated by a circular table where the consortium's leaders were seated. The atmosphere was one of quiet tension, the air thick with unspoken rivalries and cautious curiosity. Jason took his place at the center of the room, facing the assembled council. He knew that this was a critical moment, one that could either secure a powerful ally or leave them vulnerable to the Zonians' next move. Honorable members of the Ryloth Consortium, Jason began, his voice steady and commanding. "I stand before you not just as a representative of humanity, but as a fellow inhabitant of this galaxy. The threat we face from the Zonian Empire is not just our concern, it is a danger to all of us. The Zonians will not stop until they have subjugated every world that stands in their way. But together, we can stop them." There was a murmur of discussion among the council members, but their expressions remained guarded. Jason pressed on, knowing he needed to offer something more tangible. "We understand that the consortium values stability and profit above all else," Jason continued. "An alliance with us would not only protect your interests, but also open new opportunities. The Sokai Union has already joined our cause, and they bring with them advanced technology that could revolutionize your trade networks. By standing with us, you would be ensuring your own prosperity in the long term." One of the council members, a shrewd-looking Relothian female with sharp features, leaned forward. "Captain Rees, we have no doubt of the Zonians' ambitions. But you must understand, our position is precarious. If we align with you and fail, the consequences would be disastrous for the consortium." Jason met her gaze, understanding her concern. "I won't pretend that the road ahead will be easy, but the alternative is far worse. The Zonians will not spare the consortium simply because you chose to stay neutral. They will come for your wealth, your resources, and your people. But if we stand together, we have a chance to stop them, to preserve our way of life." The chamber fell silent as the council members exchanged looks, weighing Jason's words. He could see the doubt in their eyes, but also the flicker of fear, the realization that the Zonians were a threat they could not ignore. Finally, Viceroy Thauro spoke up. "Captain Rees, your argument is compelling. The council will deliberate on this matter. You will have our decision by tomorrow." Jason nodded, knowing he had done all he could. "Thank you, Viceroy. We'll await your decision." As they were escorted back to their ship, Sarah Vance spoke up, her tone skeptical. "Do you think they'll go for it?" Jason sighed, feeling the weight of uncertainty. "I don't know, Sarah, but we've planted the seed. Now we just have to hope it takes root." Back on the Defiant, the crew settled in for a tense night of waiting. Jason sat alone in his quarters, staring out at the stars, wondering what the future would hold. The stakes were higher than ever, and they were running out of time. Early the next morning, Nexus informed Jason that the council's decision had arrived. Jason quickly assembled his team on the bridge, his heart pounding with anticipation. Viceroy Thalro's face appeared on the main screen, his expression as inscrutable as ever. "Captain Rees, after much deliberation, the council has reached a decision. The Ryloth Consortium will join your alliance, under certain conditions. We will provide financial support and trade routes, but our involvement in military operations will be limited to defensive measures." Jason felt a surge of relief. It wasn't a perfect agreement, but it was a significant step forward. "Thank you, Viceroy. We accept your terms. Together, we'll stand strong against the Zonian threat." Thalro gave a slight nod. "Very well, Captain. May our partnership be prosperous for both our peoples." As the transmission ended, Jason turned to his crew, feeling a renewed sense of determination. They had secured another crucial ally, and the tide of the war was slowly beginning to turn. But Jason knew that the hardest battles were still ahead. The Zonians were regrouping, and when they struck again, it would be with a force that could shatter entire worlds. Yet for the first time, Jason felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that, against all odds, they might just have a chance to win. "Set a course for our next destination," Jason ordered, his voice firm. "We're not done yet." As the Defiant powered up its engines and soared into the unknown, the gathering storm loomed ever closer. But Jason Rees and his crew were ready to face it, united with their new allies and driven by the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The final stand. The Defiant emerged from hyperspace, entering a region of space where the stars shone like distant beacons, their light obscured by the encroaching darkness of the Zonian fleet. Jason Rees stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the massive enemy armada that filled the view screen. The time had come for the final battle, the decisive confrontation that would determine the fate of the galaxy. "All ships, report status," Jason commanded, his voice steady despite the tension that gripped him. One by one, the voices of Allied commanders crackled over the comms. "Sokai Union Fleet, ready and standing by," reported Admiral Kaur, the powerful Sokai battleships forming the vanguard of their forces. "Reloth Consortium Defense Flotilla in position," Viceroy Tharo's voice came next, the consortium's sleek ships taking up defensive formations around the bulk of the Allied fleet. "Outer Rim Coalition forces on standby," another voice added, representing a group of independent worlds that had chosen to join the fight. Jason felt a swell of pride. Despite their differences, these disparate groups had come together, united by a common cause. They had one last chance to stop the Zonians before their relentless advance consumed everything in its path. "Nexus, analyze the enemy formation," Jason ordered. The A's calm voice responded, displaying a tactical overlay on the screen. The Zonian fleet is divided into 3 main groups, each led by a Dreadnought-class warship. Their formation suggests they plan to envelop our forces and strike from multiple angles simultaneously. "We'll need to break through their lines before they can execute their maneuver." Jason studied the display, formulating a plan. "We'll concentrate our attack on their center. If we can punch through and take out their lead dreadnought, it might disrupt their coordination and give us a chance to regroup." Vance nodded, her eyes narrowed with determination. "It's risky, but it could work. We just need to hit them hard and fast." Jason turned to the comms officer. "All ships, this is Captain Reeves. We're targeting the center of the Zonian formation. Focus your fire on the lead dreadnought. We need to break through before they can complete their maneuver. Stay together and watch each other's backs. This is it. Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment." The order went out, and the Allied fleet surged forward, engines flaring as they closed the distance to the Zonian armada. The blackness of space was soon lit up by the glow of energy weapons and the flash of explosions as the two forces clashed. The Defiant led the charge, its powerful cannons firing in unison with the Sokai battleships, each shot aimed at the massive Zonian dreadnought that loomed ahead. The enemy ship returned fire, its weapons scorching the void with deadly precision, but the Allied forces pressed on, their resolve unshakable. "All shields to maximum," Jason shouted as the Defiant shook under the impact of a direct hit. "Shields holding at 75%, Vance reported, her fingers flying over the controls to adjust the ship's defenses. Jason's eyes were locked on the dreadnought, its ominous shape dominating the view screen. They were close now, close enough to see the flicker of its shield generators as they struggled to withstand the onslaught. "Concentrate fire on their shields," Jason ordered. "We need to bring them down before we launch our torpedoes." The combined firepower of the Allied fleet focused on the dreadnought's shields, a barrage of energy beams, and missiles slamming into its protective barrier. For a moment, it seemed as though the shields would hold, but then, with a brilliant flash, they flickered and collapsed. "Shields are down," Vance called out, a note of triumph in her voice. "Fire torpedoes," Jason commanded. A volley of torpedoes shot out from the Defiant and the surrounding ships, streaking toward the exposed hull of the Zonian dreadnought. The impacts were devastating, tearing through the ship's armor and triggering a series of explosions that ripped through its superstructure. As the dreadnought began to break apart, Nexus's voice cut through the noise. "Enemy fleet is losing cohesion. Their maneuver has been disrupted." Jason allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but he knew the battle was far from over. The Zonian fleet was still vast, and though they had dealt a critical blow, the enemy was not yet defeated. "Reform the fleet," Jason ordered. "Prepare to engage the remaining Zonian forces. We can't let them regroup." But before the order could be fully executed, Nexus alerted them to a new development. "Captain, detecting a massive energy signature," originating from within the Zonian fleet. Jason's blood ran cold as the view screen zoomed in on the source of the energy spike. At the heart of the Zonian formation, a colossal structure was emerging from the shadows, its angular design unmistakable. "It's the Zonian flagship," Vance whispered, her face pale. "The Obliterator." Jason had heard the rumors. A ship of unimaginable power, said to be capable of destroying entire planets. And now it was bearing down on them. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Jason shouted, but even as he gave the order, he knew it might be too late. The Obliterator's main weapon fired, a beam of searing energy that cut through space like a scythe, carving a path through the Allied fleet. Ships were vaporized in an instant, their destruction a testament to the weapon's terrifying power. The Defiant was hit by the shockwave, thrown violently to the side as alarms blared and the lights flickered. Jason gripped the console, struggling to stay on his feet. "Damage report," he demanded. "Hull breaches on multiple decks," Vance replied, her voice strained. "Shields down to 30%. We can't take another hit like that." Jason's mind raced. The Obliterator was too powerful. They couldn't fight it head-on. But retreat was not an option. If they fell back now, the Zonians would overrun the remaining defenses and the galaxy would be lost. "We have to take out that weapon," Jason said, his voice firm with resolve. "It's our only chance." Vance looked at him, understanding dawning in her eyes. "But how? Its shields are impenetrable, and we don't have enough firepower to break through." Jason's gaze hardened as he made a decision. "We'll have to get inside." The plan was audacious, almost suicidal, but it was the only option left. The Defiant would have to breach the Obliterator's outer defenses and deliver a payload of explosives directly to its main reactor. "Prepare a boarding team," Jason ordered. "We're going in." As the Defiant maneuvered toward the Zonian flagship, the rest of the Allied fleet continued to engage the enemy, buying them precious time. Jason gathered a team of the best soldiers and engineers on board, knowing that this mission would be their most dangerous yet. The Defiant approached the Obliterator, its once pristine hull scarred and battered from the battle. The ship shuddered as it withstood the brunt of the Zonian flagship's defensive fire, but it pressed on, refusing to back down. "Boarding party ready," Vance reported as they reached the target point. Jason nodded, donning his helmet and gripping his weapon. "Let's finish this." The boarding craft launched from the Defiant, slipping through the gaps in the Obliterator's defenses and latching onto the colossal ship's surface. Jason led the charge as they breached the outer hull, blasting their way into the heart of the enemy's ship. Inside, they encountered fierce resistance. Zonian soldiers fought with desperation, knowing that their flagship was their last hope. But Jason and his team pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. They reached the reactor chamber, a vast, pulsating core of energy that powered the Obliterator's devastating weapon. Jason set the charges, his hands steady despite the chaos around him. "Detonation in 5 minutes," he announced, his voice calm. "Let's move." The team fought their way back to the boarding craft, the timer ticking down as they raced against time. Jason was the last to board, firing a final shot before sealing the hatch. "Get us out of here," he shouted to the pilot. The craft detached from the Obliterator, speeding away from the doomed ship. Jason watched as the charges detonated, a chain reaction of explosions tearing through the flagship's core. The Obliterator shuddered, its lights flickering before it was consumed by a massive explosion that sent shockwaves rippling through space. The once mighty flagship was reduced to debris, its terrifying weapon silenced forever. Back on the Defiant, the crew erupted into cheers as the Zonian fleet began to retreat, their morale shattered by the loss of their flagship. Jason allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction, knowing that they had won a crucial victory. But he also knew that the war was not over. The Zonians would regroup, and there would be more battles to fight. Yet for now, they had achieved the impossible. They had stood against the darkness and prevailed. As the Allied fleet gathered to assess the damage and plan their next move, Jason Rees looked out at the stars, feeling a renewed sense of hope. The galaxy had been given a second chance, and humanity had proven, once again, that they would never give up. "Course for home," he ordered softly, the weight of the battle finally lifting from his shoulders. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us." And with that, the Defiant turned toward the distant light of their home star, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united, determined, and stronger than ever before.